Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Tuesday, June the 19th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second daily dose of happy for the day. And we hope your day's going happily along. Both of our days have been going happily along, not quite the way we each expected it. Both of us have had some curves that we'll tell you about. But I think we both agreed before the show that things are going good. Isn't that the straight poop, Wendy?
Absolutely. It's always good all the time.
It's always good all the time. That's right. And you can never get it wrong. You always get it right. And it goes on forever. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. No, it was really something.
And
go ahead. No, you go ahead first.
The reason you can never get it wrong is because you have so many opportunities to get it right. You can do over. That's the world of law of attraction. There's a never-endedness to anything.
It's
you can
endless
always
mulligans. Mulligans forever.
There you go. Mulligans forever.
Do-overs all the time. I like that. That's good. Yeah. That's how you always get a hole in one.
So did you want to start by talking about what's going on with you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I woke up this morning with my wife coming over. She had gotten up before me. She comes over to me, sits next to me on the bed, and says, "Are you awake? And I said, well, I guess sort of, and I'm kind of half groggy. She says, "Good, because I wanted to let you know that you are now the CEO of Gardens by Louise. Congratulations." And I said, "Oh," and that's the way my day started.
Well, and before the show, when you told me that, I thought that was just a silly joke, and you said, no, it's serious.
No, it's real.
You've now been promoted to CEO.
Yeah, it's quite serious. So this is actually kind of funny in a sense, because a man who has absolutely no gardening experience at all, except for the kind that he tries not to think about because he really hated doing it, is now going to head a company of gardeners. I mean, that's just, it's comical on so many levels.
Well, the business world that I come from, the role of a CEO does not need to know hardly anything about the product that the company is actually selling or the service they're providing. You need to know how to manage.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, though? It's true. What you're saying is 100% true. But it's so interesting. I mean, the people who run companies know almost nothing about the product. I mean, there are exceptions. Right. We've all heard of the exceptions. I mean, Steve Jobs was an exception. He knew how a lot of it worked. And yet, even he didn't know how most of it worked. He knew how some of it worked. But that put him ahead of the curve compared to most CEOs. Most of them have no idea how any of it works.
Well, and there's an appropriate detachment when the CEO isn't married to the actual product or service.
Yeah, that's true.
Because then you run it from a sense of business and what needs to be done, instead of having your heart connected to it. Now, of course, some people do get their heart connected, and some people do know the business. Mm-hmm. But I know many years ago I was in a job where my manager was hiring another manager to be under her. And I said, "Aren't you going to promote one of the people in the existing team?" And she said, "No, and I purposely don't want to." And I said, "Well, won't that upset them?" She goes, "Yeah, but," she said, "I need somebody strong who has management skills. And none of the people currently on the team have management skills. They're all really good at what they do." And she said, "I know it's very typical for people to be promoted from within, but then you run into the problem that they don't have the appropriate skills to actually manage teams, because doing the work and managing are two different functions." And so that was a huge eye-opener for me.
Well, it's true. I mean, they are very different functions. I personally am of the belief that you can promote to management from within if you handle it right, because really, management is not like a golden goose that only comes along once in a generation. It's a teachable skill. So, I mean, I understand what her point of view was, because she wanted somebody who was just ready to go. They could just run right out of the gate and they'd be managing and so forth. But my point is it's also possible to hire from within and train them to be managers. And some of the best managers in the world come from within. So it can work either way. But I certainly see her point of view.
And some of the worst managers I've ever known had been promoted from within.
Oh, it works both ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the worst managers I've ever known got hired from outside. I mean, there have been some real duds hired from outside. So, again, it works either way.
And some real winners hired from
Absolutely.
outside, because
some huge
they brought
ones
in something that was needed. So, there's all sorts of different possibilities.
I mean, I can think of one company that had both. Again, it was Steve Jobs and Apple. And back in the 1990s, when Apple fired Steve Jobs, the founder of the company, got fired from his own company, it was shortly after he had helped to hire John Scully, who used to run, I believe it was Pepsi or Coke, I can't remember which one, Pepsi, I think, and had run it very successfully, and came over and ran Apple into the ground. Now, that was not what anybody expected, but that's what he did. He was a very skilled manager who had no idea how to manage a software company. That's the way it was, you know. And so what did they do?
I'm so glad that I live by following the guidance that I received from, higher beings.
Absolutely.
There's so much more wisdom in that collective consciousness.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. Yeah. And,
wow.
and of course, the irony of ironies is they brought Steve Jobs back. And Jobs, against all odds, changed his management style enough to make the team actually want to work with him instead of against him, and turned Apple into the major corporation it is today. I mean, it's one of the most incredible stories of all time, really, in terms of corporate stories. But anyway, that's a side story.
So congratulations, Mr. Walt. You're now the CEO.
Yeah, I didn't really expect that was ever something I would, have in my vortex. But there it is. And actually, I think the reason that she asked me to do it is I'm the one who pretty much put the plan together for how we're turning things around so that she doesn't have to do as much. I mean, that's really the goal. Because when you're a founder of a company, when you're the one who started it from scratch, first of all, you build the thing the way that you do things. And everybody does things a little bit differently, but you do it the way you do things, and that's the way you build it, and that's the way you put your team together, because that's what makes sense to you. The only problem is when it comes time to expand, it becomes very difficult for the founder because the founder's used to having everything run through him or her. And that's what Louise was experiencing. And very few people are really good at going through the process of letting go and delegating. It runs against the grain of most people who start a business. And that's why most businesses don't grow. Most businesses reach a certain level and stop. And that's why. So I have to give Louise a lot of credit. I have to give her a lot of credit because, well, first of all, she listened. And second of all, she recognized, I've got to let go of this. I've got to turn this over and trust other people to do what we're hiring them to do, which fortunately is really easy to do because we've got great people. We've got a great staff.
That's great.
When you have good people, boy, that just makes all the difference in the world. So if anyone's listening, kudos.
Well, this is kind of a business week for me because I'm off of my day job, and so I'm taking care of my business, my coaching business.
Oh, right.
And if you remember, a couple months ago, I had a prospective client calling or reaching out via email, and he was asking for me to jump through all sorts of hoops, one of which was he didn't like me using PayPal. He wanted me to get a different merchant account.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And I got to tell you, today I'm so grateful that happened, even though that guy turned out to be a fraud and he wasn't who he claimed to be.
Right, I remember, yeah.
And he was trying to do some scamming things. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I followed the guidance that I received, which was he's asking for this, go ahead and do it. And that was how my inner being got me to set up a new merchant account well in advance of me starting to take on new clients. And
isn't that wild how that happens?
Yeah, because now I'm learning how to use all the dashboards that go with this merchant account.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, I can't believe how much money I've saved over the PayPal fees. I mean, even with the extra fees of having to go through this bigger company, it's like I'm still saving a ton of money. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So it was cool. And I spent hours on the phone today with them, with the merchant account people, trying to figure out certain features of, things that I needed to do and whatnot. But it's been a fun learning experience. This is the part of running businesses that most people don't enjoy because it's tedious. It happens to be the part that when I have the time, I do find pleasure in it. And so I waited until I had time off from the day job in order to do it. And so I feel like I'm in better standing now and I know better what I'm doing. And, it's like I'm inside of my business. And I have to tell you, sometimes for me, it just feels really good when I'm inside of my business. I'm where the money is. And it's all good all the time.
Yeah, well, you're ultimately doing allowing, which is what the section of the book is that we're on right now, and we're about 3 subsections away from concluding. But allowing is crucial to all areas of life, and we're talking about how it's crucial to business in the last 10 minutes here, because it is. If you can't allow, you can't succeed. And that's a simple fact. I mean, it's not like most business owners that succeed do allowing deliberately, because they don't, and many of them do it poorly. But they do it just enough to succeed. They're able to let go just enough to get where they need to go to. Not that it's impossible to do it without allowing, but it's certainly a whole lot easier.
And what I learned a couple months ago when I signed up with this merchant account company, after I got signed up, got approved, then I started using it, and I called their tech support. And what I learned was their tech support didn't know much. And the reason is because the company had just moved over to a different type of software that they were now utilizing on the back end, and nobody had fully been, it's not that they hadn't been fully trained, but yeah, maybe I could say maybe there was no training.
That's possible.
They didn't know much. And so now here I am 2 months later. I figured out a whole bunch of stuff on my own, which is kind of my own style anyway. And now I was calling back with the same questions to see if 2 months later they had any level of success.
Mm-hmm.
And, actually it took a good while today. I worked with 3 different people, but I finally talked to like the tech people, where each one was saying, 1 minute, let me put you on hold while I talk to so-and-so. And then they're like, you know what, I'm going to turn you over to so-and-so. And then I got with him, and he was having to ask someone. And finally, at the end, I got to talk to the real tech guy. And even he said, we're going to have to do some testing. Can I call you back? And I said, yes.
Okay.
And it's like finally all the questions that I had been asking have finally been answered.
They're getting addressed,
right. Some were, no, that feature's not available.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And could you put it on a list saying this would be a great feature to add?
Sure.
And he said, yes, absolutely. And then another one that I could tell hardly anyone could understand what I was asking for. I finally was talking to somebody who could actually pull up my account, and I'd say, all right, now to go to this page, now click on this tab. So we could look at the exact same thing together. So then when I asked my question, he really understood what I was asking.
Good.
Where I could tell when I was asking my questions before, it was just way vague in their head, and they didn't know because they didn't do transactions. They weren't doing what I was doing.
Right.
So it was just a bunch of words. And the old me, oh my God, I would have been so frustrated, so infuriated. I would have, given a barrage of ugly words to whoever I was talking to. Then I'd have to apologize after I did it, but I still would have let it out and it would have been ugly. But this time, I was just patient, and I'm like, it'll happen or it won't. I'll either get it or I won't. When he calls back, he'll either have it solved or he won't. And it was lovely to have it solved and have him say, thank you so much for all of your patience.
Oh, that's good.
And I didn't feel like I was doing anything out of the usual.
Nice.
I was like just being me. And while he had me on hold a million times, I was doing other things in the background, and it's like, wow, the old me would have had a horrendous day. I would have been so angry that I had a bad day while it was my day off.
Yeah, you don't want that.
It would have felt like I wasted a day off.
Heaven forbid.
I know, but instead it feels so different because my focus is different. And what is my focus? That, it'll either happen or it won't. I'm not attached to the outcome, except I do want a resolution either to know that it can be done or it can't.
Mm-hmm, sure.
As long as I have a question, I don't like having questions unanswered.
And we know how persistent you are. Anybody who's read your stories in the book knows how persistent you are.
I am a persistent one.
You are.
And I'm also very aware that when it comes to any kind of system, I like to be part of helping it become improved. I know that part of who I am is I'm a process improvement expert. And even if it's not my business or my personal process, I like to even be of assistance in someone else's process. And so if it's my merchant accounts process and, they don't have certain features available, I feel inclined to say, hey, can you bring this to the powers that be and mention that this would be a really valuable feature that I think many of your clients would, be able to get value from, including myself. And I love it when they say, yes, that's a great idea. I'm going to run it up the flagpole. And either they will or they won't, but I like knowing that I get to be of value, and sharing the wisdom that I see.
That's great. That's very good. Actually, we both had, now that I think about it, we both had software experiences today. Because I was also working with the software developers, which I've been doing ongoing since like late March, who are building this software package for us for tracking time and scheduling of employees, the gardeners, where they go to work and so forth. And today, with the developers, it's been a long haul. I mean, when I first gave them the project, they said, we'll have this done in 30 days. That was about 75 days ago. So it's a little overdue. But today, we finally finished, and I'm just waiting for them to deliver the final software and pay them. Like, we got here. Holy cow.
That's a nice feeling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, onward and upward. Now here's an interesting question, because we're talking about some very specific, real-world things here. And it's easy to think about these things the way we normally do, just real-world things. But here's the question. If we were to try to summarize how the law of attraction plays a role in this, I mean, what would you say to that with the stuff that you were dealing with? How does the law of attraction play a role in that exchange, that ongoing exchange you had with the team at the merchant company?
Well, every thought I think has associated to it a vibrational quality that the law of attraction is utilizing. And because I have practiced over a long period of time the ability to respond in a way that feels good to me, that meant that instead of me getting angry when at first I didn't get the answer I wanted and I don't know and I have to put you on hold, in the past that would have just made me nuts. But today, how law of attraction was able to, provide the answers in a way that they came to me is because I controlled how I reacted. And so instead of reacting like a lunatic, a raving maniac who just wants to vent all over the place because she didn't get her way, I stayed very focused on everything works out for me, and if I don't get it answered in this call, it could be another call. But I wasn't belligerent, and I was internally controlling how I respond. And the more it felt good to stay calm, the more the law of attraction brought me more thoughts, which translated into more reasons that I wanted to remain calm, that I wanted to remain in my state of everything always works out for me and it's all good all the time, Mm-hmm. So law of attraction was pumping the feel good, stay calm, it's all good energy, because that's what I was broadcasting. That's what I was purposely putting out.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. And actually, that's pretty similar to what I was going through. I mean, I was dealing with developers who were really late in delivering this. I mean, it took them more than twice as long as they projected to get the thing done. So they were really, really late. And there were a number of points along the way where I wasn't wanting to scream at them or yell profanity at them, but I was certainly rolling my eyes a lot. Let's just put it that way. And saying to myself, you guys have got to be kidding me. Because I had some experience working with developers, and I have a certain sense of a standard of, what does a good developer do? And they weren't meeting that standard. So I had plenty of opportunity to get upset. And yet, in the midst of all that, and I can't quite explain this entirely, but in the midst of all that, I never had a doubt for a second that they would finish the job. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but I had no doubt that they would finish the job and it would come out the way I wanted it to. I can't quite explain that, because every single step along the way, virtually every single signal they gave me said, we are incompetent. We don't know how to do what we're doing. I mean, that's not what they were actually saying, but that's what their actions were telling me. And I had so many opportunities to decide they were never going to be able to pull this off, but I never did.
Well, I have a feeling you must have put out some really good thoughts and feelings before you hired them,
Oh, yeah.
while you were thinking about the wonderful benefit and value of creating this new software. And I would say if you had bathed that in all sorts of feel-good stuff, then it wouldn't surprise me if you weren't matched up with people who could do it, even if there were bumps along the way. And maybe that's what sustained you in your believing it would happen.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think that is what happened. Not that I did that deliberately, but I think that is in essence what I did. And I did it because I really came from a total 100% confident place. So it was actually easy for me to believe that. It was actually easy for me to, like you say, bathe it in this glow that it would somehow all work out in the end. There was no difficulty to that, and I guess that's the part that's really boggling me, because so often I, like other people, we try to put that out about stuff that we're trying to attract, and we don't always succeed in doing it. In this case, I didn't even have to think twice about it. It just kind of came out. That's the part I don't quite get. Why is it that I did it so easily here, and yet I struggle in other places? I don't quite know that one, but it'll all come to me, I'm sure. But
I don't have to know the specific thoughts, but I do know the specific mechanics.
Okay.
Which is because law of attraction is an equal opportunity deliverer.
True.
You know, if you have an intention for something and you don't put resistance along the path, and if there wasn't any resistance from a prior something, it's usually going to run smooth.
Yeah, that's true.
If you have a desire for something, but you have been fretting and fuming and fussing over it and you've been frustrated with it before you put the desire on the plate, then most likely you're dragging it through the mud, and it's going to be an unpleasant experience, even if you get the result at the end that you want.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So,
you're right.
You know,
I mean, there had to be a lack of resistance.
What makes something go smooth versus what makes something go rough? I would say the level or the lack of resistance.
Yeah, there had to be. There had to be. And I would say there was. I mean, I can kind of look back and note that there were times during the project where I definitely felt some resistance, because I did feel some doubts about whether they were really going to be able to pull it off. And yet, now I'm getting to the crux of it. On the one hand, I did feel some doubts. On the other hand, I didn't feel doubt. Now that's a direct contradiction. And yet, I had this overall feeling it was all going to work just fine, even though along the way I had certain doubts about what it was? I just realized what it was. I didn't doubt they were going to be able to do it. The only doubt I had was how long it was going to take. And sure enough, it took a long time.
And isn't that interesting? Because you're getting the result you wanted. That's where you didn't have doubt.
Right.
But it took longer, and that is where you had doubt, and
Exactly.
You manifested it to be longer.
Exactly.
That's very interesting.
And somewhat annoying, too.
Good deducing on your part. Good
deducing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I think it's a fun thing when you can figure out how and why things occurred, because when you get it, when you really know those particulars, then you can take that with you into the next manifestation.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
You can be more deliberate and more purposeful.
That's true, yeah, because the more that we mess around with this law of attraction stuff, the more we play with it, the more we try to learn how to leverage it, and then the more we succeed, it just kind of fuels the fire. It just feeds into the success bin, and the more stuff that's in the success bin, the more trust we have in the next thing we're going to try to attract.
You know, I had something in my life that's been going on for a while, and something at work, and it was just kind of needling at me. It wasn't something that was making me all out furious, but it was just kind of an undercurrent of something that it just poked at me, and it felt uncomfortable, and I didn't really like it. And I'd kind of put it out of my thoughts because I had other things I needed to take care of, but it just kind of kept creeping back in. And, you know, it was probably there for about a month or so. And I talked it out with a friend a couple days ago, because I was hoping if I talked it out that I could get some traction on it. And I'll be honest with you, the traction I got was I got great validation for, yep, you're right on the money. You know what you know. and this situation sucks. That's kind of how we landed. And I was like, well, crap. Because I told her, the friend I was talking to, I said, I'm hoping to get two things out of this conversation. One, I'm hoping to either validate my perspective, because I really trusted her perspective, that she actually had better intel than I did. And so she could either validate it or tell me I was totally crazy. And what she did is she validated. And I said, I'd like to understand what I'm bringing to the table, why I'm creating this, so that I can get out of it, so I can stop feeling uncomfortable. Well, we managed to do the first piece, but not the second. So on my own, I was still just playing with it. And I went, man, now that it's validated, to be honest, it feels worse than ever. Because now I'm no longer in question, am I right? Am I wrong? Now it's like, no, I'm really right. Well, now what do I do with this?
Yeah, right.
Because it wasn't something that I necessarily could change. It was just, I knew it was just all about, this is my perception, and how I'm thinking about it is what's causing my personal suffering. It's why I'm feeling uncomfortable with this. And so the other night I was just sitting down, and I was just saying, hey, I was talking to my inner being. I said, can we just talk about this? Because I was really hoping, after I had a conversation with my friend today, that this would have all just kind of went away, but it didn't. It escalated. And not that I hadn't asked my inner being's perception before, but now it was like, hey, it's between you and me. It's just you and me. Let's just talk on this one. And for all of a sudden, I got this moment of clarity, because I'm dealing with a third person, and it's the third person that was driving me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, I know that their inner being is not looking at this the way I am. And I'm asking my inner being, I'm like, you're probably not looking at it the way I am either. And how do I know that? Because I feel so crappy.
Ah.
So I'm like, how all you inner beings, how are you looking at this situation? And it's like, in one sentence, I got the insight, which is, here I'm thinking, okay, let's just call it Sally. Sally's the person who I think is doing stupid things, and she should be doing it differently.
Okay.
And when I went to, my friend, we'll call her Tammy. When Tammy and I got together, Tammy was like, you're right. Sally is doing stupid stuff. It's inefficient. It's not the best way to accomplish things. So Tammy and I were on the same page going, rah! And when I'm talking to my inner being, I kind of got, well, you know what? Sally has been doing what she's been doing the way she's been doing it for a long time. And I'm like, yeah. And then I went, yeah. And somehow, not that Sally doesn't land on her feet, but she keeps getting a result that doesn't cause her to go under. It may not be the result that me and Tammy thought would be the best case scenario for her, but she still lands on her feet, even if it's inefficient. And all of a sudden I went, so what makes me think that this time, because she has something else coming up where she either has to land on her feet or drown. And I'm like, what makes me think she's going to drown this time? She has had energy for a long time that continues to match her just barely scaping by, but she does. She still lands on her feet. She doesn't drown. It's just not up to the standard that Tammy and I thought she should be at, or that we would want to be at. And I realized, wow, I've been putting my own judgment on Sally. I'm projecting what I think she should do because it's the way I do it. And because she's not doing it my way, and it's not as efficient as I do it, I think the whole world is going to blow up for her. And I don't want to be around when the blast site goes off. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And it was amazing, because this has been something niggling at me for over a month. And all of a sudden, just with this awareness that hey, Sally has an inner being too. Sally's inner being is wanting the best for her, and Sally's inner being is going to take her the path of least resistance. Because the truth is, she's really resistant to doing it the way Tammy or I would do. And even though Tammy and I have been suggesting our way for a long time, Sally doesn't follow it. It's like Sally tunes out. Well, of course she does. She doesn't. She's not asking for our help, but we like to give it.
Sure.
And so I had been feeling like, don't give her any more advice. Just back off. Just maintain friendliness. But in like literally, Walt, in an instant, I went from feeling really frustrated over the situation with Sally to going, oh, Sally's inner being's got this under control. It's all well in her world. It doesn't have to have the outcome looking the way I would want the outcome to be. And as long as she's okay, it's all good. But the shift in how I felt was so dramatically felt by me.
Mm.
And it all happened because I had one new thought.
Yeah, and a good one too, because it's one that we don't normally think
Sally's
about.
Sally's inner being is taking care of her.
Well, first of all, she even has one. I mean, we don't really think about people that way, right? So first of all, you thought about her the way she really is, and second of all, you realized her inner being's got it covered. Like, okay, that's good.
And has always had her covered. Like when I thought about Sally's history in the company, I'm like, well, she's gone through other hiccups, but she always manages to end up being okay. But I somehow saw her current hiccup as the thing that would do her in, and she'd lose her job, and everything bad would happen. And it's like I don't think that way anymore. I think somehow she's going to land okay, right side up. And it may not be with accolades and promotions and big fanfare, but I don't think she's going to lose her job over it anymore. I think she's just fine. But it was amazing to me how in an instant, I recognized how I had been putting my judgment upon her with an expectation of her doing things the way I would do them and seeing how she wasn't going to do it the way I did it. So all I saw was a negative result.
Right.
But it's like, oh, wow. Because, you and I sometimes talk about how different people with different backgrounds, get different results and how they do it. Well, this to me is one of those instances, which is I recognize even homeless people, and I'm taking that extreme purposefully, even homeless people sometimes have chosen homelessness because that's a better choice for them. That feels better than being responsible and, living in a world of corporate 9 to 5, etc. It's like we all make our own choices. And if a homeless person finds a good shopping cart and has a place to sleep and in the winter has a shelter that they can go in and they manage to eat every day, they may feel that's a successful day. Now, I have very different values. I am the air conditioning queen. If it is not in a certain, temperature range for me, I am miserable. So for me, a successful, happy day is where my body literally feels that it's at the right temperature. And I was driving the other day and I saw this homeless person sleeping like on a cement concrete, sidewalk. They had put a blanket or something between them and the concrete, but I'm like, it's Texas. It's 100 degrees beating down on the cement.
Right.
And this lady who looked like she might have been in her mid-40s was just curled up on the sidewalk on this blanket sleeping in the heat of the day. And I'm like, oh my God, that for me would be absolute torture. But to me, she looked like she was sleeping soundly. And that, that just kind of points out to me how we have different values. We have different things that have different meaning to us. And, what this whole situation with Sally pointed out to me is another layer of, Wendy, somebody else's life is none of your business. Stay in your own lane.
That's what I was going to say. It's like you got yourself another opportunity to practice your own aphorism.
Well, and I saw it from a different perspective. I never saw it. I mean, this is somebody who I'm really close to at my job, and so when I'm in a close relationship, I just feel like there's different levels of what's appropriate to give advice or not to, and how to support and that kind of thing. And in this one, it was like, Wendy, it's none of your business. Stay in your lane. And the moment I did, I had a conversation with Sally, and all of a sudden things were moving in a positive direction for her.
Nice.
And I had a conversation with Tammy, and we talked about my new awareness, and she went, wow, you're right. We need to both stay in our lane, and we need to stop projecting on Sally and just support her where she is so that she can have a positive outcome. And then I told her, I said, well, here's what Sally just told me. And she went, wow, look at that. You removed your projection from her, and she's already started to feel and already experience positive things. She goes, now I'm going to remove mine too. And now let's see where she goes. Because and here's the point of why I'm saying this. Energetically speaking, yeah, Sally's living her own life, but she was getting really ugly energy from me and Tammy. We weren't doing it on purpose. Tammy and I, in a way, were both doing it out of a sense of love because we felt like we wanted her to recognize the folly of her ways. But then we realized, no, that's according to our judgment and our values. And what Sally's doing is not folly for her, but it would be for me and Tammy. And so I think Sally wasn't getting the kind of energetic support that she hopefully didn't even realize she wasn't getting. But now Tammy and I are on board to really support her with whatever it looks like for Sally. We support that she's going to land on her 2 feet.
Very good.
So
very, very
there's
good.
my story.
Yeah, and you're sticking to it.
And I'm sticking to it.
You're sticking to it. No, but it's true.
Oh my gosh, there are so many things, Walt, that happen in our life every single day that I see how law of attraction is a part of. And to me, what I just talked about, Sally and Tammy and me, it's like that was a huge law of attraction story because it was all about energy. And the more I felt bad and was uncomfortable that she was doing it her way because I thought it was the wrong way, the more the law of attraction was bringing me more thoughts to support, yep, she's doing it the wrong way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I introduced the story to Tammy, thinking Tammy could help change me, because I was really hoping when I first brought it to Tammy a couple of weeks ago, I was really hoping Tammy would sway me in a direction that we would both feel better. But instead, I swayed Tammy. She went down my road because Tammy and I have such similar personalities and we do things from a very similar place. And instead, we made it worse. But I didn't realize it at the time, until it just got to a point that it felt so miserable for me. I went, I must change this and I got to figure out how. And that's when I had a good powwow with my inner being. And it was like, hey, she's got an inner being too. I went, oh, yeah.
What occurred to me as you're telling all of that, and that's really a very good illustration, too, of what we're talking about, the almost invisible to us, ways that the law of attraction plays a role in every single thought that we have, every single action that we have, and we don't often realize it. But boy, both with your story, what the influences you were having on Sally and that Tammy was having as well, and my story, the influence that I was experiencing indirectly and putting indirectly onto others without even realizing it, and that Louise was putting on as well, because she was the one who was dealing with being the owner of the company who couldn't let go of stuff, and because of what I was doing with the developers and believing that they were going to get later and later and later, and sure enough they got later and later and later. I mean, none of these were any situations where either of us really did anything, and yet look at the influence we had. Influence that we really didn't want to have, but we did anyway. We did it kind of unintentionally. That is just flabbergasting to me. We just thought and talked, and look at what happened. Oh my goodness, boy, oh boy! I mean, if that doesn't bring home the aphorism that you want to be careful about what it is that you wish for, I don't know what does, because wishing includes what you think about.
Well, and if you take what we've just talked about and use it in a deliberate fashion. My hope is that the next time, and I'm sure there will be because life is what life is, the next time I start getting into someone else's business because I think they should do something my way, and I start to feel uncomfortable, my hope is that I will remember this and go, get the heck out of their lane. Stay in my own lane, because when I got in Sally's lane, when I started mentally playing around and projecting, here's what I think she should do, even though I was not even saying the words to her, energetically, I was actually influencing her ability to even do it maybe the more efficient way.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got the heck out of her business, boom, she started doing things more efficiently. I'm like,
Yeah. I mean,
so it's like I have more, I don't know if it's control, but I have more influence than sometimes I realize. And if I really want to be a power for good and a source of good, I got to stay in my own lane.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely.
Got to stay in my own lane.
What we're talking about here includes, I was talking about the developer, right? And all I was doing was projecting that the rate they're going here, this is going to be really, really late. That's all I did. I mean, I did it repeatedly, and I stayed in that. But I never thought for a second I was in their lane. Never occurred to me. All I thought was, wow, they're just running really late, and this could go on, and I'm getting frustrated by the fact that it could go on. By doing that, I was in their lane.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it.
Look how subtle that is, Walt.
Exactly. It's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, there's no denying the power of thought. It is incredibly powerful. And I'm learning every single day just how powerful it is.
You know, I recall when the day we had launched the paperback book, and you had gone into the Amazon dashboard or whatever, where you set it up so that when the people bought the paperback, they would get the Kindle for free.
Right.
And so I went in and I made a purchase, not as an author. I just made a purchase as, John Q. Public. And when I went through the checkout process, it said I could get a sample of the Kindle, but it wasn't going to give me the free version. So I emailed you about it, and you came back to me and, you said, no, I can assure you this is how I set it up. And then you even went so far as to contact someone from Amazon, and you forwarded their response saying, oh, yeah, tell your person, let us know, and we'll make sure they get the full version.
Right.
Well, I remember saying to you, I don't know that I want to go down that road. And you said, oh, yeah, well, you could get it. And I said, honestly, I don't need it, because when the Kindle version came out for free, I took advantage of that anyway. So I already had it, but I just wanted to make sure that the whole system was working properly so that other people wouldn't have an issue.
Which is understandable.
But I was resistant to contacting Amazon.
Yeah.
And I said, because I know this is an area where I got some ugly stuff going on and I haven't cleaned it up. So I knew that there was no point in my mind of contacting Amazon and having it go smoothly, because I already had a belief that it wouldn't.
That's cool that you caught that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have easily just gone ahead with the impulse and contacted them anyway, but you didn't.
I didn't.
No, that's a good thing.
And I will say, it was good that I recognized it. And I will say I'm getting better at recognizing it. And I can't think of the specifics, but I know I had something similar where someone suggested I did something. And I remember responding saying, that's a great idea, but I'm not lined up with that right now. Let me do a little bit of working on my thinking and my perceptions. And then as soon as it feels clear to me, then I'll take that action. So I am getting more clear on when I'm not in alignment to getting the results that I'm seeking.
Which is 90% of it anyway, just recognizing not being in alignment. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is.
So it's interesting. And the reason I thought of that is because I just filed that email today into one of my folders.
Oh, you did?
With you. Because I kept it open going, well, let's see if I clear that up and maybe I will contact them. And then today I went, well, I want to clear that energy, but the truth is it's not important to me today. So I'm just going to move that aside and move on.
No, that's all right. You can do that. It's not like it's a
Yeah.
requirement. It's not like you have to go clear that one, or else the world will come to an end. Thank
Right,
goodness.
right. Well, and even on clearing things, that's something I got clarity about clearing today, which is like, because I was talking to a friend the other day, and we kind of she hit a speed bump, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I got that this morning, and I've cleared that." And so as we kept talking, I said, it doesn't, I didn't say these words. It was my internal dialogue where I'm like, we're still talking about this thing that she said she cleared.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's been cleared.
That's always a good indication that it hasn't been, that you continue to talk about it.
Yeah. And so I asked her, I said, I know you told me this morning that this situation came clear into your awareness and you said you've cleared it. I said, tell me exactly what that means to you.
Mm.
And what I recognized, and I said this back, I said, oh, so you identified the thought that's been going on since your childhood that has been a problem for you. She said, yes. I said, so then when you say you've cleared it, what does that mean? And she went, you're right. You caught me. I guess I didn't really clear it.
Mm.
It means I'm still working on it.
Ah.
And I said, okay. And she goes, actually, Wendy, that was a really good point of clarification, because what I'm coming to understand is sometimes, and I'll say that people in the self-help area who have some of the tools I do, sometimes we get a little sloppy, by saying, oh yeah, I've cleared that. And what they really mean to say is, I've done step one by identifying the problem, but it's still there. It's still running my life. It's still being broadcast. Law of attraction still bring more of that same crap to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to her, well, do you want me to ask you some questions and see if we can start moving it along? She went, yes. So we did. And I will say it's not cleared because there's still an element there. But as we talked, she started to feel a little bit better. And as we went back to it, I said, now that thought, how does that feel now? She said, that thought doesn't feel as anchored in place anymore.
That's
it
improvement.
Feels like it's not really true, but there are some other things that still feel like it hasn't completely gotten me to the other side.
Yeah, so
I
she's
said,
made
okay,
progress.
so now we're in what I'll call the process of clearing.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, yeah, that's more accurate. And I said,
that's
cool.
good. Well, that's good. That's progress. Progress is good. Progress is always progress. And it should be recognized as such.
And, sometimes you can't handle it all in one session. Sometimes
Right.
you have to just marinate the shifts that have been made so that you can lock onto the new position, and then you kind of go after it again. And because, there's one that I was working on since last night that it's like, okay, I identified it. I've loosened it up. I've got the next questions, and I'm not that I'm not ready to work on it. It's just I have things I had to do, but it's like as soon as I'm ready to go work on it again, I know where I left off, so I can just keep plugging away. Because my intention for that particular thing is before I go to sleep, I'll have that one resolved.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you kind of have a deadline, sort of. Yeah, okay. Actually, as you were talking, I realized there was something else that happened today that I did recognize at the time, but it kind of slipped my mind. And yet it's pretty significant. So significant, I want to bring it up here. I've been dealing with knee issues since February or so, and it had gotten particularly bad the last couple of weeks, but I've been making some good progress the last few days, especially since I learned where to ice properly on the leg, the part that will actually help, and what that helped a lot. But also my thought processes, because I've had a number of different times now where through the pain that comes along when you're dealing with something like this, you get opportunities to, okay, can I focus on not pain? Can I focus on feeling good in the midst of pain? It's like a little bit of a challenge there in a sense. Can I do that? And there have been times where I've been practicing little things and so forth. Well, today I went downstairs to tend to some laundry, and I started to work my way back upstairs, and I'm so used lately to having to deal with the pain that I started getting into the limp mode again. And I said to myself, you know what? I don't know if I'm in limp mode because I need to, because I'm really feeling the pain, or if I'm just doing it habitually. I wonder what happens if I just start walking upstairs. And so I tried it, and to my amazement, I walked upstairs without pain.
Wow.
I mean, like, whoa, that was pretty good.
So prior to that, were you in pain, or were you not even aware that you weren't in pain?
Oh, no, prior to that, I had been experiencing, I've been up and down the stairs a few times today, and in previous trips up the stairs, I definitely felt pain. I mean, not severe pain. No, it's not like debilitating pain, but I was feeling it.
But there was discomfort.
Yeah, the scale of 1 to 10 was like 2 or 3. You'd feel it as you're walking up the stairs, right? No, that's what I was feeling. And I don't know what it was. Somehow I decided that this time I wasn't going to feel pain, and I walked up the stairs, and it's like there was no pain. There was a little bit of tightness because, I wasn't completely relaxed by any stretch of the imagination. But since then, that's kind of been the tone for the day. I'm not experiencing pain. My muscles are still tensing up because there's a part of me that still expects to feel the pain. So it's like an anticipation thing. And so I actually tire fairly easily in terms of, walking around, bending, doing stuff. But that was a breakthrough. Like, wow, I actually used my mind to shift completely away from a pain situation and not feel the pain. And just feel like I can walk upstairs, just believing it.
And you said something quite interesting, which is you said, I had been still tightening up my muscles because I was expecting the pain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, yesterday what we read in the Law of Attraction book was all about expectation.
That's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And you get what you expect.
Yeah. But this time, somehow, even in the midst of expecting it, I don't know, what did I do? Did I expect less? Did I expect it to shift? I'm not sure exactly what I did. Somehow I just believed it wouldn't hurt. And so even though my muscles were still tense, it didn't hurt. That's the part I'm marveling at.
Could you say that you felt the impulse to walk without pain?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an accurate way of describing it. Sure.
Could that have been guidance from within saying, hey, you're ready to walk now because the pain will not be there?
Oh, sure. I mean, if there's anything that I've learned from you in particular is that it doesn't really matter whether or not the guidance is actually there or if it's me thinking that there might be guidance there. So I just go with it. Yeah, I guess it was. Why not? Mm-hmm. I haven't successfully differentiated all the time. Sometimes I get it. Sometimes I can really tell, oh, yeah, that was guidance. A lot of the time, I'm not really clear whether it's just me thinking of something or I'm getting inner me guidance. But I'll go with, yeah, it was guidance.
Cool.
I'll take guidance for $200, Alec.
And you took that square. You got $200. That's really, really awesome.
It was. That was cool. I mean, because I've been practicing stuff. I've been practicing, can I take my mind off the pain and make the pain go away? And succeeding for short, very, very short bursts, like a few seconds at a time. And then getting distracted by something and all of a sudden, boom, I'm back on, the pain is there. But I have been learning just how directly my mind interacts with whether or not I'm feeling pain. And that's really something.
Oh, absolutely. I'm highly susceptible to, or I should say very sensitive to fire ant bites. And in Texas, we have lots of fire ant beds.
You sure do, yeah.
Yeah, and even if there's not an ant bed, it's amazing how they will seek me out sometimes.
Of course they will. Law of attraction.
I mean, every day I walk out to get my mail, and some days, depending on if there's cars, in the street or not, some days I'll walk across our little easement, which is like all of 3 feet. We are not talking like I'm walking across a huge lawn. So I go from my sidewalk across 3 feet to our mailbox, which is like on the street level.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came in the house, this was probably a couple weeks ago, I noticed that my feet were itchy. Now, I normally walk outside in thongs. And I'm like, why are my feet itchy? And I looked down at my feet and I went, oh my gosh, I have like 7 ant bites.
Oh, dear.
And they could have been spider, but they were acting more like ant bites. And I went, I didn't even feel my feet itch when they stepped on. I was like, how did they get there? So anyway, normally ant bites can be a real bugaboo for me. And, it's like they itch and then I open them up and then they get, scabby and blah. They go through this long ordeal of process And when I was going through it this time, I went kind of like you with the knee. What if it doesn't have to be an ordeal? What if these bites can just go through what they go through, let my body naturally get rid of the toxic stuff, throw it through my system, and just heal? Can it be easy? Can it really just be easy this time? And I will tell you, there have been a couple times when I'm like scratching. And then I remind myself, I wasn't scratching yesterday. Or I've been asking, like, how is it sometimes it really itches and sometimes it doesn't? And I've kind of noticed that, like, if for some reason I look at my feet and I happen to see them, I become more not self-conscious, I become more conscious about them.
Sure.
And as I look at them, my first thought is, oh, they're not itching at this moment. Well, you know what? Within a couple seconds, they are itching because I was just thinking about how they're not itching.
Of course.
And I've been using these little bug bites kind of as an example in my life of how to practice the deliberate creation of bug bites not or itching not. And I'm doing okay, not great, but I recognize that even though bug bites itch, they don't itch all the time. And there's just sometimes they do. And so I'm asking myself, what's triggering when they do itch versus what causes me to completely forget that they even are even there? And to me, that reminds me of you and your knee.
Oh, it's exactly the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like, what triggers it is fascinating to me.
Well, I don't know about you. For me, the trigger is I literally shift my attention. I mean, it's just that simple. I shift my attention, and now I'm triggered.
And so the moment you approach a stair, whether it's going up or down, the thought immediately comes to you, oh, I have this knee issue.
Well, more precisely, I think what happens is the moment that I have something such as a stair to climb that I have previously experienced knee pain on, my attention immediately shifts to knee pain.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's what is, right? We are creatures of what is. We experience what is. We deal with what is. What's the most common phrase? You got to be realistic. You got to deal with what is. To which I am now replying, why?
So I wonder, how do you approach the stairs, whether going up or down, from a position of, I don't want to be living in what is itis, and simultaneously not doing anything to further injure yourself? Because there are times when you have an injury that you need to, like, have your muscles be in a certain place of tension in order to, not cause further damage.
Well, that's just it. You have to kind of make a decision about, is this an appropriate time to try doing a mental reality shift? But assuming that you answer yes, then literally that's all you do. You just decide, I am this time going to walk up the stairs with ease. And I did.
And as I asked that question, I got, my inner being was saying, just ask me. Like, I'll let you know if this is the time that you do it without having to hold the handrail.
Well, there you go.
Versus,
sure.
Tensing up your muscles. Because, sometimes, like, I know when I've in the past had knee injury, I would, like, with my left foot step down, and then with my right foot stay on the same step. So instead of going one step, 1 foot, 1 step, you kind of go foot, next step, foot. And it's like, when are you ready to go to walking like a human again?
Right.
and my inner being is saying, just ask me, or if you just listen, I'll let you know. It's like, oh, okay, that's good to know.
The only thing that's left to know is that you're going to have to come back tomorrow to find out how all this plays out, because we're out of time. But Wendy, it's been great, and I look forward to talking tomorrow.
All righty, let's do it again tomorrow.
And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.